think, all in all, probably not children of all ages. I mean, I'm not exactly PG-13, but, you know, guidance from your mentor, your parent, or what have you, I really don't care. So, today's video is about the Blon, or Baolong, BL-03. And before we really get into it, there is most definitely an update in order. Messy desk, terribly sorry. So, as of today, I am officially going back to long format videos. Yes, I know this may not make everyone entirely happy. No, it's not going to make the algorithm particularly tickly and fun. But what it is going to do is it's going to make me, the guy that is spending his hard-earned fucking money on this shit. I say shit as a generalization. These are not shit. On this hobby, to share with everyone out of his time. Happy. So yes, this is entirely a selfish move, and yes, I do realize it. No, I'm not going to change my mind. I am re-recording these. Hi-Fi Dream Reviews actually sent me his personal pair. I had them for 2 weeks. I bought myself a pair. 5 in total now. 2 for me, 1 for some, and the rest for family. One of which I have given already, but I digress. I am not happy with that format of video. I don't like shorter videos. I don't get to explain everything out. I don't get to be me. It is no longer becoming my flavor of review. Sorry, that was probably loud. I understand the viewers do matter, but this is my effective product. This is me. This is my entertainment. These are my words. If you like the way I analyze things, then I implore you, stay. You know what? Even feel free to share. I won't ask you to subscribe, I won't ask you to like, and I won't ask you to ding the bell unless I feel it is necessary for an upcoming event. This is a hobby of which I love so very much. And I would not be doing it justice, or any of you who use my words as the fulcrum point for their purchases, any justice if I couldn't be proud of my work. So, I'm sorry for those of you that prefer a shorter time frame. When a device requires it, it is going to be a long video, and I do hope you will accept that. If it becomes formulaic for me, and it will not be initially, I will begin to add timestamps where I'm able to help progress things along. I'm still going to try to get the go, no-go out of the way within 10 minutes, and then go on to the finer caveats, but I'm going to be far more detailed where I feel it is absolutely necessary. Will there be 15 and 10-minute videos? Yes, more than likely. But there will also probably be longer videos. This means I may take longer than a week to produce a video. Work has calmed down and I can actually give all of these all their much loved and needed attention. As an example, before I even get any further, we're 4 minutes in, maybe 5 including the intro. These are my notes, just for the Baolong BL-03. Are you keeping track and counting? Because I'm fucking not. That's how many there are of the pages. Yes, I hand-wrote those with my Pilot Metropolitan 1.1mm stub. Maybe it's a 0.7mm. Point is I hand-wrote all of that about these. About a device that I think is worth a deeper analysis. So, with all of that out of the way, once again, thank you for coming, and welcome to another headphone review of the Baolong BL-03 from Blon, as we currently know them. Don't know where Baolong comes from? Well, quite simply, I will show you. For those of you that even paid attention and went through their box of included accessories, it's not in there. Oh, that's because I was a smart boy and put it over here. They have a testimony of their story. Blon was born, whose Chinese name is Baolong, and it is a name that inherits the pursuit of quality in Chinese language and culture. To paraphrase their brand story, I would suggest highly, if you own these, please read it. I was actually quite impressed at the amount of... I know it's a lot of fluff, but to care so much about their product that they will put their story in there and not try to hide like an incessant bunch of flashy buzzwords in there, but are instead talking about how they feel about themselves. And with these, honestly, I've not heard any of their stuff yet. These are treasures in the making. So, we're gonna cut to the chase. It is just around 7 minutes in. Yes, they get the go. Yes, these are amazing if you like the Harmon target curve. If you're not sure, Amazon still has some retailers that have Prime. So for those of you in the States, you can jump on the hype train and try them out yourself. I will say, for those of you on an extreme budget, there are other options. But unfortunately, I will also argue there are no other options, even some of the cheaper ones that are very well touted, that do not that perform to this level, even stock. Is the stock cable worth a shit? No, not by a country mile, son. But the impedance from my very simple, not terribly expensive multimeter tells me it's less than 1 ohm. You know what that means? Still pretty good for a stock. Does it tangle easily? Yes, it does, most indubitably. Are the stock tips horrible? Honestly, I've felt worse. I think the KZ ones are substantially worse, because at least these, the large ones, fit and created a seal to the point where I could hear driver flex. Normally a bad thing, but what you do is you go until you hear the flex, and that's basically the IEM telling you, oh God, please no more, I can't handle it any deeper. Oh yeah, I promised myself I wasn't gonna do that. To hell with my own promises. It was way too damn funny, if I'm being honest. So, as a stock in-ear monitor, they are not the be-all end-all, but I do think they're quite amazing. Lovely, even. And I enjoyed their sound stock. Could they use improvements? Yes, most definitely. Are there fit issues? Yes, I would say for approximately 50 to 40% of all the... As broad of a range as I will say it, about 40 to 60%. Just kind of waving my way through there. May indeed have fit issues. But is it remedied? If I can go from wanting to shit on these to basically deep-throating them and buying five pairs, 2 for myself and the rest for some family, I'm probably gonna buy another set to give to my bestest best buddy and bro from another mama. A set. That's how good these are. That's how good they are, period. Now, I'll get this out of the way also. The 10 T4s are going to be a thing. Yes, I am going to order them. No, I don't believe I'm going to be getting a deal from Linsoul. I'm going to be paying the early bird or whatever blah 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 price it's going to be. I have put in an order thanks to some of the subscribers on the Discord recommending some things for stuff that they would like to see reviews on in the future. Terribly sorry for this digression. It's almost through. And I have completed that order. It will be in short order. That wasn't funny. No. Consistency's the key. So back to these. There are some interesting caveats. Now, we've already gotten out of the way that, yes, these get to go immediately. One of the most glowing and shining goes I have given something in a long time. And I have recently touted the T180 to be quite amazing. Yes, there was even a coupon deal going on for the length of October. If you weren't in the Discord, you didn't find out. Sorry. Those are still one of my favorite in-ear monitors. They offer a unique sound that I've never heard in anything else before. Do I still love them? Yes. Are they still my top in my everyday carry kit? Yes. Do these also have a spot in my everyday carry kit? Currently. Hell the fuck yes! And you know what? Yeah, they beat the AudioSense T180s by a bit of a margin. And it's not fair to compare them because they're entirely different signatures, inherently so. But if you were to ask me to put them on pedestals, which would I grab first? Admittedly, more often than not, yes, all of the problems excluded, I would grab the Baolong Blon BL-03. And yes, I am going to continue to call them their full, long name, out of respect for them, until proven otherwise that they don't deserve my respect. So, apologies, but you're just going to have to get used to it, children. This is a simple fact of the causality of the things that this has done. So, where to start? Let's start with the biggest damn problem with these, and that is not the cable. The fit. The fit on these is atrocious. I'm sorry, Baolong. You do not curve inwards. You do not camber them in. Even if it's going to be like that. And you do not ever, for the love of God, for your next IEMs, ever include such a short fucking nozzle unless you're going to have it unscrew and be replaceable, not for a filter, but for customizable length. Don't ever let me see this. This is unfucking acceptable. But I've made it work. Why? Because I'm the goddamn wizard Farsil. I do magic. And so far, my wizardly tricks are paying off. Saddle up, children. This shit's getting real. What you will notice here is there's an O-ring right there. Clear as day. What this O-ring is you can use one that is approximately 3.5 to 4.5 millimeters in inner diameter, but it must maintain a 2 millimeter thickness. You can find those on Amazon for about $9. I'll include a link. By the way, none of the links I include do I get kickback from. Nothing. Nada. Zero. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this because I love to help. I love to share. And I love all of you. And I love myself. And you know what? I'm lucky. I have the income to do this. And be reckless and be retarded with my budget. If I can help some, then I'll do it. So, what that will do for the IEM, something quite interesting. It spaces it off, and it makes it fit more like a KZ, or not quite as intrusive, but similar to that of maybe a tin hi-fi, at least compared to my T2s or my P1s. Ooh, yeah, P1s, in terms of depth. Now, I will link some some memory foams that are comparable for this method. If you're looking for major brand names, anything similar to the Comply T400, that is a 4mm inner diameter. Yes, you can go with ones that have a 3.5mm diameter, though I do find that that pinches off the nozzle just a bit. And you may not exactly want that. There's... well, we'll get into the signature later. This is all about fit. Now, continuing with that trend, there are other options. I did find that the large stock sillies, S-I-L-I-S, short for silicones because I'm a derp, do indeed work, and yes, they have made their way into my kit that my sweet Revonext cable came with. Touts a lot of good shit, but it measures really well, less than like 0.4544 ohms through my multimeter, so for $30, not a damn bad cable if I do say so myself. They fit, they create a seal. How do you know if you've created a seal? Well, there's a few different ways. You will hear driver flex, and the moment you hear driver flex, you should really stop forcing it. Seriously, that is the in-ear monitor telling you, Daddy, please, no more, can't do no. I've given it all she's got, Captain Man, I can't take no more. That was a really bad one, sorry. The next one I have is these. I call them silicone inner tubes. You know what? That might help out quite a bit more. Things may get a bit more plosive-y for the audio. My apologies, please forgive me. So, there are these. I call them inner tubes. They are extra wides. They fit right on the nice little ridge that is given. These are biflange. Wide bore biflange. Around 4.5 millimeters in diameter. Probably 4.5 millimeters to 5 millimeters in diameter. And we'll go over why this matters here soon. These. Thank you, Red Eyes, by the way. You're the first person to find me some tri-flange that don't fucking suck. These are some deep-fitting boys. A little irritating, but they create some of the most superb seal you could possibly hope to have. And I will dare enough to say that, yes, it even increases the perceived resolution. Now, I'm not talking about stage or imaging, no. When I mean resolution, I'm talking about its ability to resolve between the frequencies and pull detail. Maybe I should also use it, I mean it also synonymously, partially so anyway, with detail retrieval. Detail retrieval goes through the fucking roof with these, and considering these are a particularly treble light and upper mid light-ish, maybe middle mid light-ish, it's a Harmon curve. You can find the frequency response graph off of Critical's website or anywhere else, to be honest with you. And what that does is it ports it straight basically into your eardrum and gives the audio a one-way ticket straight in there. Think of it as plumbing the BA, in another case, from somewhere in the chassis into the nozzle. Same effect. I don't notice much sibilancy or shrillness or even shoutiness. I just get more of the rolled treble. Delightful. I found them slightly irritating. Oh, excuse me, hiccup. Over time. Oh, balls. There we go. Somewhat agitating over time. So what I did is I bought another set, snipped the tip, and found out I could still get a wide-fitting, relativistically deep. In hindsight, what you could do is just trim the flange little by little and whittle your way down to the tip of the second flange. That way you're still plumbing it deep without irritating your inner ear. All of these options worked quite well. And here's the part where I was going to shit on them, was for the fit. Was for how the plastic was starting to show signs of stress fractures along it. The electrical tape that I've superglued on there is just aesthetics. I mean, actually, in hindsight, it maybe had more structural rigidity to it, for all I know. but it's predominantly for aesthetics, so I can just look at it and go, oh, left, right, easy. But then I went back, speaking of the structural rigidity, I went back to my KZ ZS10 Pro, and I noticed that the protruding 2-pin, 0.78mm 2-pin terminal, interface terminal, was also showing signs of stress fracturing, so it just seems kind of like something that is natural to this particular design. So what I noticed while I was playing with it is I was able to fit a foam all the way down without covering the little port down in here. You can't see it, but it's there, trust me. And what that offered was an interesting bit of stage. I went from an intensely focused, highly resolute, highly detail-driven sound with an extremely narrow field of stage, or field of view on the stage. Reasonable, very reasonable imaging, if I do say so myself, given the cost, to very unbelievably wide open. And if you've been blessed with non-conical entrances that don't taper open widely, like that of a trumpet, bugle, tuba mabar, something along those lines of a horn, where it flares out drastically, you could probably use something that is of extreme diameters, of which I don't have because those don't really work, and putting them in a ear would probably hurt like a son of a bitch. So no, not going that route. But when I bought the Complite T400s, I thought, oh shit, these things grip. They grip good. So I put it halfway down, just to where it was touching the second rib here. And then I squished it, put it in my ear, and my immediate thought was, you get in there nice and deep like, boy. Yeah, you go hold in there proper, and you're gonna squeeze my music down my ear hole. And tell you what, it sure enough did, Bubba J. Hey, boy. Yeah, that shit worked like a charm. I would say about 75% of the resolution, of the extreme resolution, is maintained thanks to the isolation and the relative directional porting of the tip, and the slightly deeper fit. It still grips pretty well, and I've not had a tip come off yet, not when using a 4 or 3.5mm diameter tip, mind you. Now, you don't get nearly as much stage as when it's nice and far out and sitting just kind of on the edge, feeling like it's going to fall out, but you get all this wonderful bass. Somehow, you still maintain a large stage. Relativistically, I mean, these don't... They do, but they don't sound like a traditional closed-back in-ear monitor. None that I have heard, listening to Yoshi Horikawa. It's quite astounding, the level of fidelity of the actual... Sorry, camera's moving, getting excited. The level of fidelity in the stage and the overall resolution for such a cheap in-ear monitor, they're honestly quite surprising. Are they be-all, end-all? No, but I'll tell you what, I'll take them over my HD 599s I'm buying off of Adam. Thank you, Adam, by the way. They will indeed get their own review in due time. So, what should you go for? Are they good for gaming? Are they good for movies? Well, to quote Hi-Fi Dream Reviews, I would say these are great for more role-playing games, MMO-type games, cinematic-type games, where you're just enjoying the game as you go. If you're trying to be pro-boy, I'll defer to his judgment, because I don't play pro. I have enough stress in my life to have to worry about playing a fucking video game, a relaxation device, competitively. No judgment if you do. I mean, a little bit, but I'm me or you. The hell should you care? So, these work fine for my purposes, for casual gaming. For movies, honestly, yes, they're quite cinematic. For anime, Dude, I was pulling shit out of those enemies like you wouldn't believe. More the little details. Better than a lot of the stuff that I've heard, and I could take them on the go and enjoy a frankly massive level of sound. Thanks to them being budget friendly and just so customizable, so mutable. Now, before we go on to the cables, let's go on to my notes really quickly. Visual representation time. The tip end is referring to this part. That is the tip end. It has an approximate diameter of 5.47 millimeters, so I will say that is probably plus minus 0.03. The retention dip, or divot, here is approximately 4.6, with also a 0.03 millimeter difference, or variance. Now, the base of the nozzle is, interestingly, 5.42. It was actually notably shorter, so I'm going to guess that this is probably 5.5, 4.7-ish, and 5.4 millimeters, respectively, not accounting for variance in production quality. At the shortest point between the chassis and the end of the tip, or the end of the nozzle, I was reading about 5 millimeters. And at the longest point, I was reading about 5.5 millimeters, so really not a lot of length to go for. I hope that helps you figure out what types of tips you need to use outside of my own personal recommendations. So I've gone through some lengths in terms of cables. This is my beloved KB ear, copper cable. This is my Revonext silver-plated OCC cable. I don't know how OCC it is. It might be a low N purity rating, but it did, to me, bring forth a pinch more treble, as silver plating naturally, or silver in general, naturally does with audio. And it brought back some of the lost treble and some of the more mushed-together dip in the mid-region, and helped to slightly unmuddy the interfacing point between the mids and the lows. Only a pinch muddy, honestly, really still very stellar for the cost of the in-ear monitor as it is. What do I recommend? I always recommend a cable. Let me get this out of the way first. The sound signature stock, and I will go on record as I'm pretty sure it's either a reasonably decent copper, probably a good OFC, or maybe a silver-plated cable. Maybe. Or it's such little copper there that it just doesn't show off characteristics. But it comes off as a pinch veiled, just a pinch veiled. Adding silver brings that back. So, yes, the key word for these, I'm going to say, is relaxed and relaxing. They don't shout at you, and they really only ever got a modicum of sibilant under high volumes, an intensely, horribly non-isolating fit. In other words, all but the tri-flange or deep fitting biflange. I cannot stress that enough. All but those in the silicone range became sibilant or harsh in the treble, in my opinion, somewhat pinchy, or maybe homogeneous a little bit in some areas to help enforce the sibilancy, of which you sacrifice to gain an absurdly large stage in some cases. So, if you're going to use silicones, I might recommend a copper cable to calm that down just a pinch. These don't seem to be very cable-dependent, though they do seem to be source-dependent, ever so slightly. They'll tell you how your amp is sounding, relativistically. They're not truly resolving. They're only $38, $40. They're not that good. They're good, but they're not that good. But for everyday use, either deep fit tri-flange when you really want to hear every little detail and you don't really care so much about stage, or you don't really care about ultra-precise imaging entirely anyway, and the fit doesn't bother you too much, but you want to hear every little detail, just the raw detail. Silver, and the tri-flange, or a very, very, very deep-fitting bi-flange. If you want to gain a bit more stage, and sacrifice I know it sounds weird, in some ways you sacrifice the imaging in the sense of the resolution quality of the imaging, fine pointing. What you gain back is better general location, if that makes sense. It becomes more cohesive and less crunched together. Now, yes, with the tri-flange you could easily pick out where something was, but there was a bit of a miss, it seems. It's kind of hard to describe, and I don't really understand the vernacular that I should use for it. It's kind of a thing you may just have to hear for yourself. So maybe instead I'll say tri-flange or the resolution, or detail getters, and if you want, subjectively, possibly, better imaging, I would go with foams, yes, and definitely better stage. Now, if you can find shorter, maybe 1mm O-rings, and they still fit properly, I would say that would give you just a pinch more stage, maybe another 10 to 5% more stage, versus having them very loosely fit up against the ear canal, as far away from the eardrum as possible. And even in those instances where I feel these are coming from brighter IEMs, I feel I'm missing out on a lot, or at least a little bit. So I still recommend silver. I know of a TRN cable, it's about $15, $16, and from what I've read on some, I don't know, hi-fi forums or something along those lines, it measures quite well on its impedance, given how dirt fucking cheap it is. So silver's my personal recommendation. We're getting to the freaks, don't worry. Now this one you see is in copper. What copper will do if you leave the mesh on, that's correct, stock mesh on, because there is an acoustic filter behind it, is it goes from relaxed and relaxing to laid back. You are beyond relaxing. You are laying the hell back with that sound. It pulls all of the harsh detail away and just offers you a more, even further relaxed sound. Just in the background, listening to music. You don't care about the details. You just want it to sound good and warm and cozy and fun and friendly. Well, that's where this comes into play. I took some extremely fine point needle nose tweezers. Go into it at an angle, kind of like that. Lift it up, and then pinch up and pull ever so gently off, so as not to disturb, because I didn't know exactly what was behind it, so as not to disturb the adhesive that I may very well still need if I didn't like the way it sounded. That's when I found out that yes, there is indeed an acoustic filter behind the wire mesh. And over time, depending on how long you keep these, you may need to end up pulling it off anyway, because dust, dead skin cells, wax, aerosolized bodily oils and moisture from sweating in the ear canal and removing the IEM and pushing it back in rapid succession, and, you know, someone's getting your attention and you're outside working in the sun. Hell, I don't know. Use your imagination. Eventually you may need to take it out. That brings up all of the treble, and that little dip it has in the mid-range gets moved from about here, with the treble being here, a little further back, and seems to, I think, shorten it just a pinch in terms of width, so you get better upper mids, a little bit less of the middle mids, and a bit more, just a bit more of the lower mids that seem to bleed together more with the lows of all forms, especially the mid to low lows. But you get better vocal performance out of it, in my opinion. By better, I mean that subjectively, from the standpoint of they became more forward, more clear. A lot of the treble I felt I was missing out on was indeed being dampened. Part of the Harmon curve. Speaking of the Harmon curve, when you do this, you're throwing that shit out the window. Gone. It's still probably reminiscent of it, but it's no longer very well-tuned Harmon curve at that point. Not at all. But I felt it was... If you have two pairs, or are willing to buy two pairs because you like them, like I do, I found that getting bored with this and feeling like you're missing something, this was an alternative flavor. Pop them in, turn it on, listen to music, and go. Wonderful signature. A little bit shouty with busy music, and it seemed to congest in the upper mids and highs, lower high region, just a little bit. The sibilancy became more of an issue with the silver cable, hence why I went for more of a copper. It lays it back, but you still get more of the intense details that are normally dampened out, so it becomes less sibilant, less harsh, and less peaky, I would say. Now, bass does come up just a bit. It seems like the apex of the roll begins at about 50 hertz, so I would say it nudges it down maybe to about 46 hertz by ear, and widens that apex close to 55, 60 hertz approximately, because there's more rumble and grumble in the rumbly, thumpy region, and there's more slam. And again, we'll get back to all the different things. I'm trying to talk about these different ways here, because I did this on a hunch, and I thought it was really interesting, and it'll tie together once it all comes together. I would call it a fun version. Makes it more V-reminiscent, or maybe more U or L-shaped reminiscent, to be honest, versus the Harmon Target, which is interesting and fun. And if you have a spare pair, or you're nifty with some needle-nose tweezers, like draw blood if you look at them wrong. Tweezers, needlepoint. I'll link to some in the description below as well. Again, not an affiliate link. I don't make money. I was able to easily put them back on. You just peel it off and then get it at an edge, and then gently, only around the edge, tamp it down ever so slightly. And bada boom. It was back on. Don't press in the center or you'll probably lose it. Came out great, quite frankly. I rather enjoyed both signatures. A brighter version of the more warm and relaxed analytical sound. And I know that doesn't make sense, but the amount of detail these can pull out for what they are is quite frankly amazing. Not be all end all, just amazing for their price range. Even notwithstanding the fact that you may need to spend a total package of about $60 to $90, depending on your favorite flavor. And assuming you have to buy all the parts, such as the O-rings and the tweezers and so on and so forth. So, talked a little bit about frequency on that. Let's go with how it is stock in terms of the dampening. Very quite simply, it's Harmon. Your very highs are unfortunately rolled ever so slightly. And by ever so slightly, I mean very much so. You lose a lot of the airy quality that you may normally hear and enjoy from a more bright or analytical or detail-oriented sound, and I would call that pseudo-details. It's not literally less details or fake details, but we're attributing too much actual raw detail just because it's so hard to get it without it being painful. That it's pseudo-resolution. It's not actually helping to separate more. All it is giving you more bright, shiny bits to pull out of some music. If that makes sense. So you miss out on brighter things. I feel female vocals are a bit more pushed forward as they seem to touch more on the register of the frequency response range that this covers and is tuned for better than male vocals. In a lot of my metal music, I felt the screamer portions were a bit more uplifted, whereas the chorus parts were a bit more dipped down as it went from the higher vocal range to the lower vocal range in terms of pitch, octave, frequency. So it felt weirdly layered, whereas the throaty bits were louder than the actual talky bits, and the talky bits were sometimes more pronounced than the throaty bits, depending on the depth they were going for. You know, a tenor versus a soprano, as an example. There we go. Then getting into the middle mids, it feels a bit dropped out, and going from something that was a bit more flat or uplifted in that region, I felt I was missing out a little bit, and it made me a little sad, although I did get used to it over time, as the overall sound was still quite relaxing and very enjoyable. Then you get into the lows, and it has a nice uplift. It goes to an apex at about 50 hertz, and then it gently rolls off. With ill-fitting foam tips, and I tried these with the AudioSense ones that came with my T180s and T260s and T100s. I could actually very, very clearly hear that roll off in many of my bass testing songs, such as Scantek's Snova, or Snova? Russian name from their album Unit. And I could hear it. And some of my 50 to 60 hertz punchy kicky ones, the roll-off was a bit more substantial, so yes. Quality in, quality out, get a good seal, or get the fuck out. That's the IEM thing, that's the IEM way, unfortunately. But once I got a better seal, that roll became less overtly apparent and more subdued and reasonable, and just became a part of the signature in a good way, in a more well-translated, homogeneous sort of way, that it all pulled itself together and didn't mush. It worked together. It was very cooperative with itself. And again, I will state this more so than before. I have never heard an in-ear monitor more sensitive to tip rolling. And I know this goes without saying, like with headphones. Oh, if you change the pad, you change the audio quality. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But I've never heard an in-ear monitor of any kind currently really have some serious shit going on. Have I been able to tame sibilancy issues or treble peakiness by changing out a tip? Yes, most certainly. Some of the bass inflection? Yes, most certainly. But 180ing the stage and imaging and detail retrieval and resolution? No, sir. I've not quite experienced that. That is some next level shit. Like, that is some magical. Yes. That is some magical shit right here. Margaret, bring out the biscuits. We got some magical shit going on in here. Yes, I watched that comedian too. Love that little purple puppet. These are amazing. They're perfectly acceptable and perfectly fine stock if you don't have extra money. They're some of the best sets I've heard stock, just comparing them to that precise price range for a Harman target curve. Yes, these become like kind of the holy grail for those parameters. You add a better cable, some more well-suited tips. Maybe you play with the dampening and put a bit of foam in there instead of the filter on underneath the mesh. Hell, who knows? You may just tame that sibilancy while maintaining an extreme level of quality from the treble. These might just be modest little trinkets here in terms of how can we change the dampening, how can we thread the inside to put in some Knowles dampers. You're welcome, by the way. That's kind of what I do. I'm an idea guy. I think that's actually about it. Oh, this is going to be such a long video to edit and render, but to be absolutely honest with you, children, I feel so happy. I feel alive. I got to actually talk about something that I enjoyed. Terribly sorry for the rambling and repetitive bits, or the redundancies, rather, but I was enjoying myself. I remember why I love doing this now, to be honest with you. I was stuck in a bit of a rut, and although this may take more time, I think the end result will be a higher quality, better layout of information for everyone. Give me more ideas for later to try and mod things. This is the best part about this hobby. Sharing is caring, after all, children. Now share your meds. Wizards don't work for cheap, and gotta say, Adderall is a little expensive nowadays. The music I started off, by the way, I should probably say that in the beginning. Gotta make better notes of that. That was the Motion Epic from their album. Hold please. The Motion Epic from the album Midnight, 2019 edition. That was the song Wildfire, featuring Andrea Piperni? Hope I said your name right. Thank you, one and all, for joining. I hope we can all go from here. Speaking of going from here, I'm almost at 200 subs. I have figured out what I'm going to do for my 200 sub special. I'm going to try and find a way to live stream my desktop, specifically Fubar. And I may just do an ad hoc review on something. Something I haven't done yet, or maybe something I have done, or something a reviewer sends in to me. I have a bit of a selection already to go with, and you guys can get an idea of how I do my thing on the fly while watching what I look for and listening to the same music I am listening to in the same way that I listen to it. ADD and ADHD not being withheld, of course. Shoot the shit, answer some questions, so on and so forth. If you all like this idea and you've somehow made it to the end, feel free to let me know about my idea for the 200 sub special. Feel free to spread the word. I mean, it's only going to happen if I hit that milestone and just a little bit after to make sure for fluctuation. Yes, I'm going to cover the T4. It may be the same or maybe better than this, maybe worse, I don't know. I've got 3, maybe 4, outside of the T4. Any monitors coming in the mail. I have a few other goodies along with it. Lillian strikes again. She's quite good. Oh, there is an ad hoc demi review on these. The KZE-10 True Wireless Systems. Wait for them to fix it. I'll spoil that one for you. Love the idea, though. We'll get into that later, much later. Please feel free to join the Discord. As I had mentioned before, there were discount codes available only to subscribers that had joined the Discord in the announcements page. There is also now a suggestions tab, so please, only suggest things in there that you are actually willing to buy, that you think are reasonable for my budget. What's my budget? I work for a living. Think about it. My entire bonus and part of my check, my only spare check that I get maybe once a quarter, went into this hobby almost entirely. So no, I don't have a shit ton of money just laying around. Debt's a bitch. All of that being said, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I did. I hope you have a lovely morning, a beautiful day, a pleasant evening, and wonderful, rejuvenating rest, my children. And may you travel far and wide within the dreamscape, so long as it leads you back to me, your favorite, Farsil, the wizard. Forgot to add great. Yeah, shit. Poof.